So in addition to understanding the math behind growing and scaling an Amazon business, it's critically important to understand the stages of growth, specifically the stages of growth for products. So the key point of this video is really to dive into the business and product stages on Amazon. So starting with the business stages and brand growth, there's really kind of 4 core elements that will either impede or accelerate your ability to grow a brand on Amazon. The first is product research, and realize that depending on the complexity of the product or your experience with developing products, it's likely going to take anywhere from 1 to 6 months per product to ideate, get samples from a factory, define the features, customizations, etc., and then to actually ship and have the product ready to sell in the marketplace with which you want to launch the product. So understanding that time window is important for understanding the speed with which you can grow an Amazon brand. The second is to understand the success rate. I'd like to say, like in baseball, that you could hit 100% of the pitches that come your way. The reality is that even the best Amazon seller, there is a margin for error because it's dynamic and you can't fully understand with certainty how a product's going to play out. Using a lot of the methodologies in this course, you can substantially improve your batting average with products, but there still is a margin of error. So I think success rate is going to play into brand growth, and typically I think it's safe to assume that most folks that come through this course can expect a 60 to 80% survival rate of products they launch. That doesn't mean that all your products lose money, but 60 to 80% of them hit a threshold where the return on investment post that first order and post launch makes sense to continue with additional orders. I've had some products that didn't lose money and they did just fine, but they weren't quite spitting out the anticipated cash needed to justify continuing to put money into them. The third is really having stable product profit. So it typically takes about 3 to 5 months to achieve product profitability in a scalable way. When you first launch a product, you don't have reviews, so you've got to typically reduce the price. You may be spending more on pay-per-click ads and promotions to get that initial flywheel momentum going. And it takes about 3-ish months to achieve that, sometimes up to 5 months. And then finally, the key thing that's going to be an element of Amazon brand growth is really cash flow. And understanding that it usually takes at least a couple product orders before the cash flow, the net profit that's spitting off of the product, is enough to order that next batch and get it there in time so you continue to have that cash flow machine running. Again, there's stages to a product, there's stages to a business, and understanding that cash is king and it's going to either impede or accelerate your brand growth performance is important. So understanding product research timelines, end to end, your success rate or your hit rate on products, how long it takes to get a product to profitability or scalable profitability, and then what is the cash flow mechanics of your business. All of those things are critical to understanding Amazon brand growth. At the product level, here is a really good encapsulation of how I look at the stages of an individual product or parent ASIN on the Amazon platform. On the left-hand side, where that kind of bar chart's going, is basically showing the gross profit that's spitting out from a product. And then the bottom timeline is really just the various stages that a product goes through. So before you even launch a product, there's an amount of time that feeds into a product's life, and that is really about product research, product evaluation, developing offers, reviewing samples, selecting factories, and ultimately shipping the product from wherever it's being manufactured into the Amazon warehouse with which you want to sell. So all of that happens pre-launch. But once the clock starts ticking, you've got the product in Amazon FBA, you're ready to start selling it, you're ready to launch it. There's a 0 to 60 day time frame, which is coined the honeymoon period. The honeymoon period is critically important in a product's life because it oftentimes defines how successful it's going to be. It also defines if a product's going to be unsuccessful. You're typically going to know that within that first 60-day time frame. What's also important about the honeymoon period is that Amazon wants to incentivize and give the opportunity to new products and new brands that enter the platform to have a chance to succeed. The only way for a brand new product to get organic ranking and to battle against seasoned ASINs that have been there for years and cultivated thousands of reviews is to give them some leniency when they first launch the product in terms of organic rank. So Amazon has your back during this period, and they're going to give you a lot of advantages for ranking the product organically. So that 0 to 60 day time frame is a honeymoon, and that is typically going to be the least profitable period of the product's life, simply because you're typically going to reduce the price 30 to 40% at launch or use coupons. You're going to have less efficient pay-per-click spend because you don't have lower cost per clicks yet, and you don't have reviews to convert the most sales. And you're likely going to have a decent chunk of money that's invested in actually launching the product from a marketing standpoint. So least profitable, but most important period, that honeymoon 0 to 60. And then the next phase of this kind of investment stage is really after you've kind of launched the product, you've started to get some reviews coming in, Amazon has kind of started to settle in terms of honeymoon period. That next 60 to 90 day period is really about optimization. So it's about looking at your Amazon pay-per-click and starting to dial your bids and starting to get that more efficient. It's about slowly, incrementally increasing your price as reviews coming in. It's testing the true value of your offer at the intended price against others in the marketplace, and closely monitoring and ideally expanding your organic keyword ranking during that 60 to 90 day period. Because you're starting to optimize things, you'll start to see your gross profit slowly triple up in this period, and you're starting to now make more money than you did in the honeymoon period. But it's still an investment. You're still not necessarily fully optimized. And then typically after that third to fourth month, that day 90 to 120 is really kind of the end of your investment stage. And this is really about generating the profit that you intended with that particular product. I call this period stabilization and an expansion. And that's really about getting into more of a steady state with pay-per-click and having, just really minor optimizations to both budgets and bids. And it's really just looking at additional SKUs that you may want to add, additional variations, and maybe even looking at international markets as well to broaden the scope of that product. And then really 6+ months from kind of that 120 day period up into the 6 month and beyond is really when you should be in maintenance mode. And that is really, you've planted all the seeds. Now it's time to harvest those profits and to really ride the wave of the Amazon product flywheel and have that thing generating cash for you on a relatively predictable basis. This is oftentimes too when you can start to leverage debt, if that's a part of your growth appetite, to actually buy additional products. And using that debt is much more predictable when you're in maintenance mode, so you can have a pretty core idea of how you need to manage cash for that particular product during this maintenance phase. So from pre-launch into honeymoon, optimization, stabilization, and maintenance, both the investment and cash flow stage, this is generally speaking what you can expect for the life cycle of a product on Amazon. And the key thing here to understand about growth, both at the brand level and at the product level, is that cash flow is the key to scale. So the amount of money and profits, net profits, in your pocket profits that are spitting off of existing products is going to predict how fast you're able to launch new products, how fast you're able to pursue those growth levers I talked about in the previous video, and ultimately how fast you can scale into 7 figures and beyond. So in the next video, I'm going to break down the heist growth calculator so you can understand some of the math we talked about in this series of videos, as well as to understand the implications of cash flow.